The small town of Elmswood was known for its quiet streets and peaceful nights. But not everyone would dare to walk through the old whispering woods that lay on the outskirts. Stories were told, whispers exchanged about a child's cries that could be heard echoing through the trees at night. Some said it was the wind. Others believed it was the crying ghost child. Do you believe in ghosts? Would you dare to step into such a place? One chilly October evening, three friends, Sarah, Jake, and Emma, decided to test their courage. They had heard the tales of the ghost child all their lives. Each Halloween, the daring ones would venture into the woods, armed with flashlights and shaky nerves. This year was their turn. It's just a story to scare kids, Jake said as they stood at the edge of the woods. Then you won't mind going first, Sarah replied with a smirk. Emma shivered, not just from the cold but from the uneasy feeling in her chest. What if it's true? She whispered. If it's true, we'll run. Simple as that, Jake said confidently, though his voice wavered just a little. The group stepped into the woods, their flashlights slicing through the darkness. The trees stood tall, their branches intertwining like skeletal hands. The silence was unnerving, broken only by the crunch of leaves underfoot. Every now and then, a distant owl hooted, making them jump. Do you hear that? Sarah asked suddenly, her voice low. They all stopped, holding their breath. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of the wind rustling through the trees. Then, faintly, they heard it, a soft, heart-wrenching sobbing. Emma grabbed Jake's arm. That's not the wind. Jake nodded, his confidence slipping. It's probably just someone playing a prank, he said, trying to convince himself more than the others. The sobbing grew louder as they ventured deeper. It sounded close now, like a child crying in pain or sadness. Hello, Sarah called out, her voice trembling. Is someone there? There was no answer, just the crying. The sound seemed to wrap around them, coming from all directions. Then they saw it, a faint figure sitting on the ground near a large tree. The figure was small, like a child, with its head buried in its hands. It's a kid, Emma whispered. What is a child doing out here alone? We should help, Sarah said, taking a step forward. But Jake held her back. Wait, something's not right. The child lifted its head, and they froze. Its face was pale, too pale, with hollow eyes that seemed to glow faintly in the dark. The crying stopped, replaced by an eerie silence. The child stared at them, unblinking. Why are you here? The child's voice echoed, though its lips barely moved. The voice was soft, yet it carried a chilling weight. Jake stammered. We were just exploring. The child tilted its head, its gaze piercing. You should leave. It's not safe. Why? Sarah asked, her voice barely audible. I don't know, Jake said, his voice shaking. But we're not going back. For weeks, the three friends tried to forget what they had seen. But the crying ghost child haunted their dreams. Sarah couldn't shake the image of its hollow eyes. Emma kept hearing the sobbing, even when she was alone. And Jake? He started noticing strange things in his house. Doors creaking open on their own, whispers in the night. One evening, Sarah received a text from Jake. I think it followed me. She immediately called him. What do you mean? I've been hearing it. The crying. It's here in my house, Jake said, his voice trembling. Maybe you're imagining it, Sarah suggested, though she didn't believe her own words. Come over. Please, Jake begged. Sarah and Emma rushed to his house. When they arrived, Jake looked pale and exhausted. It's been crying all night, he said. The three of them sat in the living room, waiting, listening. At first, there was nothing but the sound of their own breathing. Then, faintly, they heard it, the soft, sorrowful cries of a child. It's here, Emma whispered, clutching Sarah's hand. The crying grew louder, and the lights began to flicker. Suddenly, the room went cold, and the figure of the ghost child appeared in the corner. Its hollow eyes stared at them, and it spoke in that chilling voice. "Why did you come to my woods?" Sarah found her voice. "We didn't mean any harm. We were just curious." The child's expression didn't change. "You shouldn't have come. Now you're marked." "Marked for what?" Jake asked, his voice shaking. The child didn't answer. Instead, it let out another scream, and the room plunged into darkness. When the lights came back on, the ghost was gone, but the sound of its crying lingered in the air. After that night, strange things continued to happen. Emma's reflection would smile at her when she wasn't smiling. Sarah's phone would play recordings of the crying, even when it was off. And Jake? He stopped showing up to school. When Sarah and Emma went to check on him, they found his house empty. The words "you shouldn't have come" scrawled on the walls in what looked like ash. The story doesn't end here. The crying ghost child is still out there, waiting in the whispering woods. If you ever hear a child crying in the distance, would you follow the sound? Or would you run the other way? If you enjoyed this story and want more chilling tales, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Who knows? The next story might be about you.